Hi there. So I just was going to show off something I found at the Goodwill near my house. Today I was dropping off some stuff to donate and I thought, oh, I wanted to go check out, see what's inside. I usually just do a very quick pass. Here in Portland, Goodwill stores are very crowded. They're always jam-packed with people. All of them are like that. It's funny when I see videos of people go to Goodwill in other cities and there's like, people there, but just a handful. Because honestly here, it's every aisle you go down, there's like 3 or 4 people in them, and the aisles aren't very wide, and it's very difficult to kind of look at stuff to buy because literally you're jostling for position, and it is always like that no matter when you go. So anyways, I don't spend a lot of time there because I don't really feel like fighting with crowds of people. But I went in there anyways, and I took a look, and I saw this little gem. This is basically something I found for 20 bucks, and it's a Koyo TVM-95. And what it is a NTSC grayscale 9-inch CRT monitor. The condition is pretty good. I mean, it could use a little bit of cleaning, but I'm pretty pleased. There's a couple little blemishes in the front here. There's a little bit of a scratch there on the bezel. I think the CRT, yeah, the picture tube itself is perfect. It's a 9-inch diagonal, black and white monochrome display. On the front panel here, there's a horizontal hold, vertical hold, brightness and a contrast knob, of course, and a physical power switch, and a power LED. And this screen was obviously designated to be used by for industrial applications, so most likely security cameras, things like that. But early on in the computer era, these were often used for computer monitors because back then, basically all you could get was these types of monitors. There weren't really computer screens, and these are pretty high resolution. Even though this is 9-inch, hooking this up to say an Apple II would get you pretty good picture quality. Very readable text. It can do, well, I'll talk about that in a second. I think I've seen some photos of the Apple II being used with this monitor, or one very similar to it. The typical Apple IIe or II Plus or Apple II would have this monitor sitting on the top of the computer, which of course the computer's wider than this, and then next to it would be stacked 2 floppy drives on top of the computer. Of course, that didn't last. They started having, actual computer monitors that were 12-inch, 13-inch, things like that. So, you got a bigger screen, and that would take up the whole top of the computer. But this was not uncommon to find these back in the day. So let's take a look here at the back. Oops, I'm sorry, I got a bunch of wires here coming along with it. All right, so I took the cover off, so I didn't put all the screws back in. That is why there's some missing. They're all installed. So basically, on the back, it's a typical industrial style monitor, Koyo Electronics Industries. I am not sure. I tried doing a little bit of research. I'm not sure if this is a Taiwanese company or is a Japanese company, but definitely the monitor here is made in Taiwan, Republic of China, manufactured October 1984, and there's a serial number sticker. Has 2 BNC inputs, which I have a adapter on one of them. There's a 75 ohm and a high Z or high impedance switch here, so I guess it's selectable. Inside, behind these holes here are actually adjustment knobs, and there's V-hold, V-size, V-linearity, a focus knob, and I can't remember what this one is, H-hold. Now, the funny thing is V-hold and H-hold are actually on the front of the monitor. So this one on the left, there's actually nothing there. It's just there's no actual knob behind there, but that's the V-hold. H-hold actually does have something behind there, which does do some adjustment. And then also up here is width. So other interesting thing is Here's the model number TVM-95 again. Power input is 120 volts, 60 hertz, 37 watts. For commercial use only. That's interesting. Talks about the fuse rating. There's a glass fuse inside. Don't open. Oh, to reduce the risk of fire and shock, do not expose this appliance to rain or moisture. And to prevent electric shock, do not remove back. No user serviceable parts inside. Refer to qualified servicing to qualified personnel, which is hilarious because I guess it's true that for an end user there isn't much to change. But you know, you can change just the fuse in there and some other stuff. And this monitor is manufactured to comply with DHHS rules 21 CFR subchapter J applicable at date of manufacture. I have no idea if that's like an FCC thing or what, but that's pretty hilarious. A fixed power cord with a regular US style plug on the end, you know, good quality, and rubber feet on the bottom. You know, it's metal on all sides. I haven't really looked at the bottom. Nothing on the bottom, just sort of grill vents. And that's about it. So let's take a look inside. Take off these two screws. So take the two, that comes off first, just the back cover. Not too much to see here other than another power supply, another serial number sticker, the mains transformer, and you know, the back of the CRT yoke here is the board there. Just as a informational, this is live right here. There's hot and neutral coming from the power cord, so that's a bit scary. Well, not really, but you know. But the monitor is properly earthed. The ground cable from the power cord goes right onto the chassis right here, so that's nice. And let's take off the rest so we can get a better view of the inside of the monitor. It's pretty solid, well constructed, durable screen. Like when all the screws are on, this thing is a little brick shithouse, as some people would say. Anyways, there we are. So let me reposition the camera. All right, here we are inside the screen. Pretty typical. Let's take a look here. First of all, I'm going to make sure that it's disconnected from the mains. It is. Okay, so what I can tell right off the bat here is it seems like there's a lot of markings that have Tatung here, and that is a brand. I remember when in the 80s you could buy computers made by Tatung. So this transformer has Tatung on there, and also on the main board, I don't remember what it is, but I was looking around and it does say Tatung as well. So they're obviously the manufacturer of this monitor. I think that is a Taiwanese company. But anyways, so looking at the picture tube here, the CRT, it says N10 and 9-90. I don't know what that means. It might be hard to see on the camera. And then TDY-605C there on the coil. So, and as for the screen itself, looks like a CPT brand. I don't know. I'm not too familiar with like the manufacturers of these. But anyways, if you know what that stuff means, but there's CPT and there's like two Chinese characters, sort of. There we go. I'll expose it there. So interesting. D1027. Anyhow, it's, you know, typical CRT, but yeah, you can see the construction is it's typical. So this is the horizontal size there, and you do need an Allen key to adjust it. And I see there's one adjustment on the board down there. There's the fuse. It's in a holder, which is nice. And yeah, generally decent construction. Ah, yeah, there's see the Tatung there, and there's the logo. It's upside down there. That's the board manufacturer as well. Now, I didn't bother like taking off this metal cover here, so there may be more adjustments under here. But yeah, anyhow, so that's it. 20 bucks I paid for this monitor, and I'm pretty pleased with it. So let me turn it on. We'll do a couple tests. Okay, so it seems like everything works perfectly on this monitor. I did give it a try at the Goodwill before I bought it. I couldn't, find a video source to plug it into, but when I turned it on, I was able to turn the brightness up, and I could see the scan line, so it was definitely scanning correctly. Obviously, if there was a problem with the horizontal deflection or vertical deflection, you'd get a line this way or a line this way or a dot in the middle, or there would be problems like that. But everything looked totally normal. So let me just turn it on here. Oh, it would help if I plugged the mains in. Let's see here. I gotta clean up my desk here. It's a bit of a mess. All right. So one thing I like is that there's an indicator light here, and the monitor doesn't really make any sound. A lot of times with an NTSC monitor, you can really hear the 15.7 kilohertz, scan rate of the screen, and with this one, you really can't hear it at all. It's a tiny little flyback transformer, and all the components are pretty small, but that's kind of nice. So as you can see there, we got some. Okay, so you can see the refresh rate of the camera there is causing that little bit of effect, but I don't see that. But if I turn up the brightness here, so very clear and defined scan lines. You have to just ignore the annoyance there, but you can see very clear scan lines, so the focus is really quite good. A little bit of spudge there. So yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, so anyways, so let me move the camera. Now I have one of these chip little computers here. I bought it from Kickstarter. What was this thing? 20 bucks? Something like that. Interesting is it's runs Debian. This is not compatible with the Raspberry Pi, really. And the issue is that this is still pretty young. It's not very cheap because you have the Pi Zero, which now costs $5. This thing costs, I think, 20 bucks, and then with shipping and everything, it was more. But the nice thing is this does have a Wi-Fi and a Bluetooth module built in. So while it only has one USB port and no HDMI, the only video out on this currently is composite through this little pigtail here. You can at least use the Wi-Fi built in. So I bought one. I mean, will I buy more of these? I don't know. I'm really used to the Pi. There's so much stuff available for the Pi. It's great. But anyways, it was going to be my source for testing the composite output here. And I have a keyboard plugged in, and I have it hooked up to my bench power supply for power. So we'll plug it in there. Monitor is on. Turn the brightness up just a slight smidge. And we'll turn on the output of the power supply. And there we go. So, okay, I've actually done some adjustment already to the screen. That's why the lid was off. Some of the things I've done is I've adjusted the rotation of the entire picture. So what you do is you loosen the set screw on the yoke, and then you can actually rotate the entire coil assembly, which just what it does is it rotates the entire picture. So I've it wasn't badly off, but it was off. I've also fiddled with the size and those controls on the back. The focus essentially seems to be pretty good already. This is obviously displaying 80 columns right here, 80 by 24 probably, and it's doing it at 640 by 480, or whatever resolution across by 480 lines. It's running in interlaced mode, in other words. Back in the old microcomputer day, or I'm sorry, in the personal computer days of the Apple II, if you had an 80 column display, it would be running at equivalent of like 640 by 200 or 240. There was no interlacing on the Apple II. It resulted actually in a little bit more of a stable picture. When you're looking at interlacing on text, you do get a little bit of flicker. And if anyone remembers had an Amiga, it was the same thing on that computer. If you had a flicker fixer, which would basically convert the output to VGA, it was okay, although you got some interlacing artifact if you moved stuff around while you were interlaced mode, because a VGA monitor is not interlaced. Well, not a 640 by 480, that is. But if you looked at an NTSC monitor like a Commodore 1084, then basically if you had an interlace mode, you did get noticeable flicker on text, and especially on the user interface, graphics like the lines and stuff. So 640 by 200 or one of the overscan resolutions definitely resulted in a more stable picture. So the output of this, and I think the Raspberry Pi is the same thing, is it's always running interlaced mode. There's no way to shut that off, which actually sucks because you can't turn the interlaced off it makes when you play retro games on a CRT not as realistic as it was like back in the day, because pretty much everything from the 80s that was a game console or was a computer, except for the Amiga, was always outputting non-interlaced graphics. So NTSC supports a progressive mode, and basically the scan, you get 60 hertz, you get 60 frames per second. And when you go to interlaced mode, the scan lines go up and down and they judder essentially, and that creates the 480 lines versus 240 lines. Anyways, it's complicated to explain a little bit, but the end result is that these boards just have like cheap composite output, always output interlaced mode, and it just doesn't look quite as good for text. Although, I mean, you get more resolution out of it, it's a bit sharper, you know, when it comes to the number of pixels. But anyways, I have to say, for 20 bucks, and for a monitor that's, what, 32 years old, this came out in 84, it's amazing. This thing works. There is absolutely no burn-in. Like if I turn off the brightness here, there is not a lick of burn-in. Picture quality is great. It's totally stable. My only complaint would be, and I have no idea if this was actually like this when it was brand new, is that the overall brightness seems to be affected by the content. So meaning, if you have nothing on screen, you actually get a little bit more of less contrast. I mean, so how do I explain this? Let me see if I switch the... Okay, so when I'm just displaying this text, the overall black background, you know, you can actually see it in the camera a little bit. You can start to see the scan lines. It's as if I have the brightness control too high. So, and then if I switch to this display, which has a lot more text, the black is actually darker. So I had a Nintendo hooked up earlier and I was playing games on it, and that's quite noticeable during transition. So when you basically get a black screen and then it draws the screen like this, as it draws it, the overall intensity of the screen kind of drops. And I assume that has to do with some regulation inside the monitor. And I just don't know if that's because of maybe capacitors that are worn out or if it's always been that way. But anyways, I have to say this is a pretty cool little monitor. I'm glad to have it. I'm a fan of CRTs. I mean, you can tell I have a Sony here, a PVM-14MU or whatever, you know, broadcast monitor. That's color. It's 14 inch. That is one of the best monitors ever made. I mean, there's a 20-inch version, which is generally regarded as one of the best ones. And there's a few different Sony lines. But this is the HR line of the Trinitron, which is basically the highest resolution shadow mask there is from any kind of NTSC screen ever. And that thing I got off Craigslist, and it's great. I used that for playing games and, you know, doing testing and stuff. But I thought it'd be neat to have, you know, a more retro 80s black and white screen here. Say if I ever have an Apple II, or I want to just do some emulation of an Apple II. You know, this is a bit more retro. I had an Apple II Plus when I was a kid. I had a VIC-20 when I was a kid. And on the Apple II Plus, I had I think it was a Tatung, or maybe it was a Samsung monochrome monitor. Although ours was orange, you know, amber, I guess you used to call it. It wasn't white phosphor like this one. But anyways, it's kind of cool. And from a sharpness perspective, let's see if I can get this on the camera here. I'm sorry, I'm like moving the tripod around. So it's definitely a little bit, you know, out of focus in the corners. The overall sharpness in the overall screen is great. Like in the center, it's perfect. On the sides, even, it's not bad. It's just you get a little bit of distortion up here in the corner where it says Debian, and it happens on all four corners. It's down here as well, and it's about equal on all four corners. I wish I could display a test pattern. I need to do that. But overall, not bad. I mean, this thing was not designed for computer display, for text display. It was probably designed for the output of video camera systems. So, you know, that kind of stuff doesn't matter as much. And, you know, on here it does. The usual controls all work fine. So this is the H hold, and of course if you go too far, you get out of sync. But it works. It moves the picture back and forth. And then there's V hold as well, just like every old TV you remember, which is just, it's adjusting the frequency ever so slightly. So it locks on, and you get a little bit of up and down movement there, but not a lot. And that's too much, and that's too little. And brightness, obviously, this knob works perfectly as well. It seems like there's a lot of headroom with this screen. Oh, sorry about that flashing. That was in the camera only. So I don't think the runtime is very high on this screen. There's a lot of brightness in this picture tube still. It's not worn out at all. So this thing obviously was stored and not really used. And the contrast knob is the only one that's probably a little scratchy. Here, I'll turn the brightness up so you can see it. Okay, well, it was, and now it's not scratchy at all, which is amazing. These are 32-year-old knobs. Who knows where this was stored? And look at that. The contrast knob works great. It was a bit scratchy. Oh, you can actually see the thing I was talking about with the brightness. So as you can see, there's a bit of light there. And as I turn the text up, notice how it's very bright. The text is really bright. Right now it's, starting to bloom a little bit. So it means it's losing focus. But the background black has now gotten a lot darker. See that? And I think that's that regulation I was talking about. Now, if I turn the brightness down, then that doesn't happen. See? Like, it's I don't see anything right now. It's black, and it's still black. And the text is, very clear, and, you can make it too bright, where it's a little bit bloomy. Oh, you can see a bit of scratchy on the knob there. Excuse me. But this is a more comfortable level, and it's very clear. Now, the only problem is, when you have it adjusted this way, if I had a grayscale like rendition up on screen right now, it crushes the dark colors quite a bit. In other words, the lower brightnesses would be invisible. So anyways, that's just a side effect of this screen, I guess. But yeah, there it is. There's this little Koyo Electronics Industries TVM-95. Great little screen, 20 bucks. Perfect condition, 32 years old. That's pretty amazing. It's amazing how well things were made. Solid little screen. So I'm gonna probably really spend a little bit of time to clean it up. Luckily, I don't need to retro bright anything because there's just black plastic and the rest of it's metal, so that is not an issue. But now it's cool. I have a little screen for playing around with. I just wonder is this the same picture tube that's in like a Mac SE or Mac Plus? That's interesting. I wonder how compatible these are. Like if you could take one out of something and use it on something else. But yeah. Anyways, there it is. Yeah. So the text. If I'm looking just at this GNU Linux here, when I switch to this screen that has basically nothing except for this on here, it is a little bit brighter. This text is a bit brighter than it is on this one. So it's almost like the average brightness. The voltage regulation is just not that good on the beam. But anyways, thanks for watching. Thumbs up if you found this interesting at all. And there you go. Bye.